Welcome to the Mind Chimp podcast. Hey man, welcome to the Mind Chimp podcast. How are we doing?
Very well.
Good.
Yeah,
good,
especially
good.
after that visit to the pub.
Yes. It's always good to have a beer in the sun.
In the sun in
Or
London.
wine, yeah.
Yes.
So yeah, as you can probably tell, listeners, this is one of my face-to-face ones. Amanda was super helpful when I said, do you want to come on the show? And we kind of aligned our kind of day. So yeah, having a beer is always good. But I am in a nice hotel room, meeting room within a hotel, to kill the sound. I probably wouldn't have asked for this, but Amanda stepped in and worked a magic. So thank you for that.
No worries. If you don't ask, you don't get.
Correct.
That's my motto.
I love it. So what I need you to do for me, Amanda, is I need you to pick four numbers, please, from 1 to 100.
Okay. 1.
Yep.
33.
Okay.
41.
Okay.
And 100.
Awesome. We will come back to them a little bit later on down the line.
You're going to tell my fortune?
Hopefully.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I'll tell you now, it's bright. It's wonderful. But I guess before we jump into kind of these questions, I tend to ask my guests to tell me what their logline is or their summary. How did you get on with that?
You know, we had a chat about this before, and this is something I struggle with. And I don't know if it's an identity crisis or what it is, but, technically what I tell people on my LinkedIn, what I tell clients is that I'm a learning transformation strategist, which essentially means helping big companies change the way they do learning for their people to get better results. But when it comes down to it, what I think I really do is connect people within those organizations, with other companies, with other individuals, basically whatever it takes to achieve that outcome. Bit of a fixer, maybe, like getting the room today.
Okay, yeah. I mean, yeah, like I guess for me, when someone says your name to me, I think you have so many skills you bring to the table. It's hard to do your logline. I think I would struggle to do your logline for you because you do so many awesome stuff. It's not like you do one thing. You're so good at doing all these other things.
Well, you should have just done my logline then. I
Yeah,
think. Yeah.
Maybe next time.
Next time you can do it.
So I guess before I jump into these questions, when you was a young little kid, a teacher would come up to you and say, Amanda, what do you want to be when you grow up? What would you say?
You know, it's funny. I don't think I knew it then either. I've always wanted to do so many things. Maybe it's because of curiosity. I've always been interested in many different things. And so it's hard to pick just one. I remember I had this book and it was like a Dr. Seuss, what do I want to be when I grow up? And I remember filling that in. And I think I put artist at one point, teacher at another point. And then I remember scratching it out. And I think I even had a phase where I put like millionaire or, executive or something. And then going back to it, felt embarrassed that I was so materialistic and I scratched it out again. So, I'm still stuck. We'll see.
And that's fine. That's absolutely fine. But so I want to do a couple of things. So I'm going to give you a few random words and I want you to tell me what comes to mind. Okay. Now these words, it's not overanalyzed. It's just instant what comes to mind. Are you ready?
Ready.
So first one, digital learning.
Buzzword.
Okay. Classroom.
Digital.
Okay. And we'll do 2 more. L&D.
Dying.
Okay. And digital transformation.
Opportunity.
Okay. Awesome. So I guess kind of, we know each other kind of from LinkedIn and then we've met at conferences and we talk quite a bit. But maybe for my guests who don't know who you are, maybe you could give us a bit of a whistle-stop tour and kind of, tell us where you come from and what you've done and literally the journey to where you are right now.
Okay. So geographically speaking, I was born in the US in Madison, Wisconsin. Then I moved to Spain. Actually, I live in Spain now, in Madrid, about 20 years ago. So that's been a bit of a bit of a leap, but professionally, always connected to education. Was a teacher once upon a time. I ran my own business for about 10 years, actually doing translation, interpreting, a lot of other things, not totally related to education. But then I realized that my true love really was learning, and I wanted to get back into it, and so I did, and wanted to take advantage of the opportunities presented by the new technologies. And I say new, this is when, Skype was emerging, that kind of thing. And I thought, wow, that could just really take education to a new level. So I've worked on the provider side, in fact, for a couple of different organizations. And then most recently decided to go independent, working in partnership, as you know, with Lori Niles Hoffman, advising big companies on their transformations.
Okay. So I guess the leap to Spain, I want to kind of dig into that a little bit.
Yep.
How have you, I mean, in fact, maybe we go before that and go back to kind of, your upbringing, but how did you find that transition going from, say, States to Spain and then living in Spain now and kind of coming over to the UK and stuff?
Yeah, it's funny. People ask me, do you have Spanish heritage? Why, right? And I was just a bit of a freak. I always have been. So growing up in the Midwest, my parents could not be more white, more Midwestern, more like Wisconsin, right?
Okay.
And maybe it's because they named me Amanda, which in the American pronunciation does sound like it's like Latino or something. And so I signed up, for Spanish classes when I was in middle school, and was just always interested in other cultures, I think, and just opening up my mind. And so I had the opportunity to come over to Spain to do a year abroad, ended up getting offered a job, and, the rest is history.
Nice.
So
Nice.
But now, you were asking me before, but are you commuting to the UK or what is your thing? And I spend a lot of time here, but really most of the work I do is not in Spain. It's around Europe and North America.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess I think one of the things what we do, and maybe this is more of a corporate culture question rather than necessarily an L&D one, but when we interview these people and we say we want the best people for the jobs, and then you go in for an interview and you've got to demonstrate this best version of yourself. And actually, I think we should be saying to them, what does your failure CV, your failure resume look like? Yeah. So if I was to say to you, Amanda, what's the one biggest thing in your failure resume? What would that be? Because I think we get more about a person and more about, actually we learn more from our failures than we do. So what would your failure resume look like? And this can be personal, professional, and it doesn't necessarily, it could be something 25 years ago, it could be 10 years ago, it could be yesterday, crossing the road. It's up to you.
It's a long list. I mean, you look at it, and I always am hypercritical, I think, of myself as the number one, target of my criticism. But if anything, I think I stayed away from learning for too long. So when I did have my own business, which was quite successful, but it wasn't connected to learning for many years, I think that was a bit of a mistake.
Okay. Okay. Interesting. So what's been your most recent success story? Again, personal, professional.
My most recent success story. Wow. Well, it's been a bit of a roller coaster, I should say, probably the last 8 months or so since I decided to go independent, which is always a risk. But, being able to make that happen in a short period of time, and being able to pivot and really enjoying the work that I'm doing and adding value, I think that's what I would say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. So if I was to say to you, you have to give a book as a gift to 5 people, and this can be a book what you think everybody should read, or maybe it's a book what fundamentally changed your perception on life or whatever. What book would you recommend?
Wow. Okay. I was thinking of recent reads, but you threw me for a loop there with life-changing books.
This is why people never come on the second podcast.
Yeah, it's okay. So I was on a plane from Madrid to London earlier today, and there's a really nice young woman next to me, and she's finishing her sort of, about ready to start university. And it was interesting. She said, yeah, my parents really want me to be a doctor, but I kind of like philosophy. And so I was thinking about that and what it means to be a woman even today. So one book that shaped my life was, and this is not maybe for everybody to read, but The Second Sex by Simone de Beauvoir.
Okay.
That really made me think about, wow, my identity as a woman. It's like the feminist kind of awakening, if you will.
Okay, so I do not know this book.
Yeah.
So if you could.
That's pretty hardcore though.
Okay, so
Yeah.
so kind of what was your one of your biggest things taken from that book? Kind of what I guess we talk about kind of why we remember certain things about books or why we remember our favorite teacher's name, but why that book? Kind of like what one thing from that book did you take away the most?
Because it made me realize that the experience of being a female, of being a woman, is distinct and it does mark your life, and that there is a lot around that you don't recognize yourself as being different from. I'm struggling to articulate this, but it's just this awareness of the fact that being a woman does shape your experience.
Okay. So I think the one thing what I'll probably say in L&D and actually more recently it's become more, I think a good while back people would say L&D is mainly male dominated and blah blah blah, and they're all good shouts, but I think recently I've seen on LinkedIn kind of women in learning and stuff like that. I think that's a really positive thing for our industry, I think. But I guess the reason why I say that is kind of more around social media, actually. So, we engage on social media quite a bit, LinkedIn and whatnot.
Yeah.
But what's your take on social media? And maybe the question is actually, do you see social media as a net positive or a net negative to society?
So 2 things there. So one is about women in learning and one is social media. So the question is...
Yeah, so the question is kind of, the women in learning, maybe you can tell us a little bit about that. Mm-hmm. And then I guess the follow-on is kind of separate to women in learning, but actually maybe it's because it's the channel is social media. What's your take on social media?
Okay.
Deep.
So women in learning, all about that. I do think that there's a lack of women in top leadership roles.
Yeah.
Like pretty much anything else, right? And one of the factors maybe behind that has to do with something that social media hopefully can remedy, which is the networking piece, which is something that I also really love to do and help others to do as well. So because the internet is an open platform and you can reach out to anyone, which I do regularly, and I've really appreciated some of the relationships I built that way, you can really expand your network. So social media, I think it's very positive. This is a whole other conversation.
Okay.
But when it comes to the possibility of learning from others that aren't in your immediate network or that you might not know, certainly not physically and never have, I think it's a world of opportunity.
Yeah, definitely. So and these questions are there to kind of prompt and be a little bit provocative, and sometimes they're there to kind of make you struggle. So but if I was to say to you, football stadium, 1 million people is going to come out of a football stadium and we're going to see this billboard, and this billboard you own, what would you put on that billboard?
Don't ask me about football today.
Yeah.
I couldn't get a flight to London because of the Champions final, that in Madrid, right? So that's why I'm sitting here on a Saturday. But so what would I put on a billboard in a football stadium?
So it's mainly what the people coming out of the stadium, you get this opportunity to kind of to shape or maybe prompt 1 million people to say, do, look, see, whatever.
Okay.
What would you put on that billboard?
For L&D. For example,
it could be for L&D, it could be just personal, it could be anything you want.
I think I'd say the time is now.
Okay.
What are you waiting for?
Okay. That's a good one. That's a very good one. So this kind of leads me on to L&D then, I guess. So,
you're right. It's not just for L&D.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I think I like that because it's actually personal and professional. But I guess me taking it as L&D for now, but the time is now. So, I think L&D as a whole takes a bit of a kicking every now and again. Sometimes rightfully, sometimes wrongfully. But where do you see L&D going? Like, given where it is now, and I don't want to say this, but what's the future of L&D? But given, obviously being sensitive to the fact that you might not be able to say who your clients are and whatnot, but actually what's kind of where do you see L&D going, and what's the problems you're tackling in L&D at the moment?
So I think it can go in more than one direction. It's a bit of the choose your own adventure that we were talking about before.
Yeah.
So if L&D continues as is, I think it will die.
Okay.
And maybe that's why when you said before L&D and I said dying, I was thinking about that. But there's an opportunity, and that seems to be a leitmotif here because I keep saying the word. But if L&D really right now, I think companies finally are realizing that it's mission critical to upskill their people, right? So if they don't make sure that they have the skills that the company needs to get to the future, the company itself is going to die. So the time is now for L&D to really transform the way it does things, the way it operates, the kind of roles it has within the team too, just the way it tackles learning. And we hear a lot these days about learning in the flow of work and all of that stuff, but do it. Right? I'm kind of getting sick of hearing about it and not seeing it actually happen.
So how could, if we've got, say, someone from, I don't know, maybe it's a head of L&D now, what 2-3 pieces of advice would you say to give them to do that? What would you say to them? Or how would they?
Well, I think the first one, and maybe it's because I come from more of a business development background, really, it's, do you know the strategy of your company, right? And therefore, can you say why your learning and development strategy supports what they're trying to do? If you don't know that, you're in trouble. So you better figure it out, because then you can't talk the language of business and you're not going to be able to sell any of your initiatives anyway. That's the first thing. Another thing I'd say, and unfortunately, most L&D organizations don't know what the strategy is, and they don't even talk in those terms.
Okay.
The second one I'd say is to take a long, hard think about your team. And yeah, you have the bench strength that you have. It is what it is, but you need to really be honest about how you're going to transform that team to get to the future.
Okay.
Beg, borrow, steal.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's important. And then maybe the last thing, we hear a lot about moving from courses to resources, which I completely believe in. But how do you actually make that happen? And in order to do that, technology, yeah, it can help, but fundamentally, you need to think about changing your operating model too.
Okay. And I reckon just that one piece could be a whole podcast to itself, how to change that.
I was talking to Don Taylor this week at a conference and about that, in fact. And I said, Don, I think this is the next big thing. Okay. I really do. I think, changing the way we operate as L&D in a much more agile way to be able to turn around content and, resources faster to respond to business needs. That's going to be very hot.
So watch this space then, eh? I
would say so.
Okay.
And it's doable. That's the thing. It's something that you can actually do. It's actionable. Right? It's not something, it's not a pie in the sky.
Yeah. It feels like, I think the just hearing you talk about it, kind of, it doable is one. And actually, I think it's doable and it's realistic. It's like, it's not like you're turning around saying, you need to completely rip up and start again. I think what you're saying is like, actually, these are just realistic, simple changes, what you should be doing. Because, like I say, if not, you're going to be dead and buried very soon. So, if I was to say to you, and again, this is going to be a challenge one, I reckon. But if I was to say to you, explain what you do to a 5-year-old, how would you explain that?
Well, I have a 9-year-old and 11-year-old, and I still haven't managed to explain to them, okay. So I don't know. But I help people learn better in companies.
Okay.
That's my version for my kids.
Okay, yeah. That's a good one. That's a good one. Some people really struggle with that. Like, I'm a firm believer if you can't explain it to a 5-year-old, then you don't really know what you're doing yourself. So well done. Kudos to you.
Or maybe a better point is help the people who are doing, providing the learning for people in companies, right?
Yeah, next level.
There you go.
So, okay, so and these questions are they're aimed at to be more personal, I guess. But can you remember the first time you ever got in trouble and how or why?
The first time I ever got in trouble. Well, according to my mother, but she's known to make up stories about my childhood. She once told me, actually my whole life, she said, your first sentence was, I need a cookie.
Okay.
Right? And said, you're so demanding. See, this was your first sentence. And then brought out my baby book not so long ago. And the first sentence is, I love you, mommy. Right? So she's not very credible.
Okay.
But According to her, my first big time that I got in trouble was I crawled into my brother's crib and just bit him because he had colic and he cried all the time. And I just got sick of listening to him and was probably jealous because he got all the attention. I don't know.
Wow, okay.
But I don't actually remember that, so I don't know if it counts.
No, it's still there. It's still there. So I asked LinkedIn, a couple of people kind of, if kind of any questions I've got to throw to you, and it seemed really fitting that Laurie kind of sent one, and it was kind of ask you where you got the nickname of a terrier from. So go for it. Explain that one.
Yeah, she's been looking for my spirit animal for some time, but I think the terrier is because I am quite persistent. So when I believe in something, you know, and I care about it, I see it through to the end, and I'm a bit relentless. So I kind of like, clutch onto it and make it happen. So.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's good to know. That's good to know. So kind of, I guess the thing what I'm kind of thinking about right now is kind of, we talk about this thing of the thing of kind of people taking from marketing and people taking from comms and people taking from X, Y, Z and whatever else. But where do you stand on that? And actually, I kind of want to flip back instead, actually thinking about this now. And I one of the things is when we're over at conferences and whatnot, it's just this thing of vendor, and actually deciding who's right, who's the right fit for your problem and whatever else. How, if you could give any advice to kind of businesses who are looking for vendors, what advice would you give to them to kind of picking the right one for the problem? How do you filter through all that?
That's a tough one, and there's so many solutions out there, and there's so many services, so many people that ostensibly could help. But how do you navigate that? And it's like a full-time job, just keeping updated, with what's out there. So, without sounding like I'm trying to sell what I offer, I would rely on someone external who does have that vision, who is up with the trends and knows all the companies and know what they do. But then also someone who is going to take the time to understand your problems, so they're not just pushing a solution on you, but rather the right ones.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is more about you, and obviously I follow you on Twitter and LinkedIn and stuff, and I can see the stuff what you're doing with Laurie and whatever. But maybe you could tell us in detail kind of what a day in your life looks like, and it can be professional or personal or both. But yeah, tell us what a day in your life looks like.
So the work that we're doing with companies has to do, as I said before, with helping them navigate how they're going to transform the way they do learning. And a lot of that has to do with making that shift from courses to resources. It's not to say that face-to-face is dead or anything like that, but how can we do more resources and less courses? Both of us have spent some time with learning technology providers, especially myself. And so what we see is that companies, many of them, think that technology is going to solve their problem. So a platform, they come to us because they're either about to buy a platform or they've already just bought one, like an LXP or something like that. And then they realize, oh shit. I mean, there's more to it than that. And that's the thing. So, the technology is the visible piece, the tip of the iceberg, if you will. But behind that, there's so much more. It's, what is your content strategy? What content are you putting into that platform? Do you have the right roles and skills in L&D, in your team, to be able to deliver on that new reality? Are you doing performance consulting? Are you using data as well, which is absolutely key? The operating model that I mentioned before. So are you going to continue business as usual, a course catalog or an annual plan, or are you going to change that? Because if you don't, no platform is going to help you. And then the last dimension to that I particularly focus on is, how are you going to sell it? So you can have the best initiative in the world, transformation, you've got it all sewn up. But if you can't convince your stakeholders internally, from the top senior leadership all the way down to the end user and the line managers and everyone in between, forget about it. There's a big commercial component as well that needs to happen to get the buy-in internally. So we help companies with that too, the business case too.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
what does the day in our life look like? It kind of depends on what is required. So sometimes Companies will want us to help them with all of those things. Sometimes it will just be a bit. Occasionally it's a brain dump of a couple of days. Other times it takes months. It just depends.
Okay. So at the start, I kind of said to you kind of some of these buzzwords and kind of, what do you think to him? So, and I might be wrong here because
Yeah.
I've had one beer, so my mind's gone fuzzy. But I think we said digital and then we said buzzword. Explain that one. So why is...
Well, digital transformation, I think you said,
Yeah.
right? And it's funny because I even say I do digital transformation, but I feel like saying digital nowadays is kind of like saying it's mobile. Of course it's mobile, right? That's the default. And also everyone's changing. So what does that mean? So that's why I say it's a buzzword.
Okay. And I think one of the other ones we said was classroom, and we said,
and then I said digital.
Digital. Yeah.
Because at the same time, I think we have to move away from the classroom model, and take advantage of the technology for sure.
Okay. This is good to know.
They seem contradictory, yet they are not.
No, I like it. I like it. It kind of gives you, it's a good spin on it, definitely.
And it's not e-learning, by the way. I'm not talking about storyline.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I remember when we had Laurie on and I kind of wanted to get her triggered very quick. So I put e-learning straight away. I was like, let's just watch how this goes.
Show her an avatar and she will.
So
she'll go crazy.
Yeah, no, definitely. So a couple of these questions now are going to get a bit deep.
Okay.
And they're probably going to need a bit longer answers because, well, they're deep questions. So I'll start with this first one. Mm-hmm. Do you even like yourself?
Do I like myself? Oh my gosh. I think so. I think I'm pretty happy with myself. Always, it's a work in progress, right?
Okay. Fair enough.
Hey, sorry we interrupted your podcast, but we just wanted to let you know about Venderly, where finding learning has developed. At Venderly, we understand the pain points of looking for reliable vendors and securing new clients. We've created a platform to help you with this, save you time, and help you flourish. We want you to be the first to see it, so head over to venderly.co.uk and take a peek. That's Venderly with a double N.
We talk about kind of, you are the people who you're surrounded by. So if I was to say to you, if I had to say, actually, recommend me 5 people who I should either follow on social media or get to know. And it's hard because obviously you're very well networked, let's say, and you know lots of people. But what 5 names would you give me?
Only 5?
Only
really?
5. I mean, to be honest, usually I've limited it to 3, but I'm being nice today.
I think it depends on what you're trying to achieve. I mean, that's when it comes to connecting, that's what I try to do. It's not just randomly saying, hey, these are, smart people. It's who are you and how can mutually you benefit from one another? How can you learn from that person? So the people I would recommend for you would not be the same that I'd recommend for others,
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm gonna push on this one.
Yeah.
So maybe it's 5 people in L&D who are challenging the ideas of L&D. So not necessarily specifically one thing or another, but actually just the general of L&D.
Okay. Oh my gosh, you should have let me prep for this one. Only 5.
Yeah.
Well, I have to cite my partner, Lori Niles Hoffman, of course. I've had a brain crush on her since before we met, and now I'm lucky to call her my partner. I would say a very brilliant woman who I had the pleasure of spending the week with, in fact, in Madrid for an event, is Trish Uhl.
Okay.
Particularly because of how much she knows about data and analytics and all of those things that are really hot topics right now. But she also really does bring it down to earth and make it something understandable for the industry.
Okay.
Who else would I say? Yourself, Danny Seals.
Oh, nice.
So Danny and I were talking about another hot topic, not just because it's a trend, but because it's necessary, which is learning experience design for learning. And I feel like that's something that it's still an evolving genre that somebody needs to own. So follow Danny and you can learn about that. He's going to be talking about it a lot in the near future, I think.
Thank you.
Yes. Bianca Bauman is a good one, who's actually a colleague of yours, I think, at GP these days, because of the connections she makes between marketing and learning.
Okay.
And also, I'm very pragmatic, so I like the fact that it's very actionable. Right?
Yeah.
It's very, these are tactics that you can apply to learning. And maybe on the corporate side, let me think. So another colleague and friend who we also were talking about earlier today would be Peter Reber, who is recently joined Novo Nordisk.
Yeah.
I think he'll do great things there.
Yeah, I'm gonna. I think I'm gonna meet Peter quite soon. I'm meeting Bianca next week, but by the time this comes out, I'll have already met her. So this is like me predicting the future. Hey, Bianca, it was an absolute pleasure to meet you. So when she hears this,
she's a smart cookie, as my mother would say.
Okay, yeah. I like that. I like that.
I tried to name some names that might not be as familiar as well, because excuse me, that we tend to kind of go back to the same ones as well.
Yeah, and this kind of actually this has actually just prompted me to have another question. But in our industry, we see the same names over and over and over again, and actually, there's these other people who have got great ideas, and you just mentioned a couple there, kind of who aren't well known or doing different things. But what do you think L&D could do in order to empower them people and their voices and them new ideas? Because I think you see at conferences a lot of time it's the same names talking, the same names presenting, and whatnot. What do you think? Like, I understand there's an element of, well, tickets need to sell and these names sell and whatnot. But what do you think L&D can do to kind of give power to them other voices?
I think social media really helps, because it does provide a voice and a forum for people that might not be tapped on the shoulder to talk at conferences. But also would say that some of the people behind organizing, some of the biggest conferences, whether it be ATD or Learning Technologies or some of the other ones, I think they should be braver. They try to strike a balance, I think, between forward thinkers and disruptors and other individuals that are kind of representing the status quo, because they're afraid that they might alienate the bulk of the industry, or call the baby ugly, if you will. And I think that they should just be bolder and go for the disruption.
Okay. There you have it. Go for the disruption. So, and this is more about you now. So I guess kind of tipping in and out of L&D and not L&D, but idea. Let me your 80-20 is what I want to get at. But so for an example of your mobile phone, 80% of them contacts you'll only dial 20% of the time. However, you'll have 20 contacts who you'll dial constantly.
Yeah.
So applying that 80-20 to your life, what's your biggest life hack? And this could be your hack in your day-to-day role, your professional, your personal. What's your biggest thing? What saves you time?
What saves me time? Excuse me. What saves me time? I'd say motherhood.
Okay.
Just because it makes you have to be super efficient and prioritize, because you just don't have that much extra time.
Okay.
So, I mean, when I'm thinking about, is this worth it? First of all, do I have the time to do it? Is this really something that should be prioritized? And if not, it goes to the back of the line.
Okay. There you go. Motherhood. I have no kids, so I can't relate to that one. I'll just take your advice on that for sure.
I don't know if that's a life hack, though. I don't know if I recommend it.
Yeah, I'll have loads of kids. I'll be like, Amanda, it doesn't seem to be working out for me. I've got 5 kids now. What do I do? But kind of, when we look at kind of this, it's easy. And I guess in your life, especially when you're traveling quite a bit and whatnot, I reckon it can get quite busy. And when I say busy, I mean busy in your head. You've got these ideas and whatever else. How do you quiet the noise? And maybe it's a noise in your head. Or how do you take yourself out of the hustle and bustle of day life and kind of slow it down?
I was hoping that you were going to tell me how to do that.
Oh, I've not figured that whatsoever.
No, I don't know. I mean, try as much as I can to separate, work from life and relax. That's again a work in progress. Wine helps.
Yeah. Why? There you go. Maybe that's the biggest life hack in the world, right?
Yeah.
So I like this podcast because it's going to be a short one, and I like it. It's very efficient, which then goes back to your thing which you were saying right at the start about being efficient and actually kind of I don't know where I'm going with this, but I kind of like it's a more efficient podcast. I'm feeling this one, but kind of going back a bit full circle, and we never really like stop at developing ourselves. And this is this thing where we're just constantly developing, as you well know. So if I was to say to you, Amanda, what do you want to be when you grow up now? What do you want to be?
I have no idea.
Okay.
Because I think that's something it's constantly evolving. I'm happy with who I am now, as long as I stay curious and I'm always reaching for something more.
Okay. So, given your background in L&D,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm making the assumption that it's someone new coming into L&D, what 5 tips would you give to someone who's new coming into it? So they've got no background in L&D right now, and it's the start of their adventure. What tips would you give to someone new?
I would say just look anywhere but L&D for inspiration. That's horrible to say, but I mean, look at other disciplines within the organization and learn as much as you can. Yeah, and then also just the power of the network, really. And I think that goes for any industry, any profession. But don't be shy. Reach out to the people that you think are smart. Connect with them. Follow them on social media if you can. Learn as much as you can from them.
Okay. Sound advice, definitely. So, at the start of the show, I asked you to pick some numbers. And these numbers kind of tally up to some random items. Now,
okay,
let me set the scene. You're on a desert island.
Oh, gosh.
And you've managed to find these 4 items. And I need to know what you're going to do with these 4 items on a desert island. So, your items are...
Okay.
You pick these numbers, remember?
Yes.
A condom, a piece of chalk, some stockings, and an iPad charger.
Oh, my God. I think I need a glass of wine. A condom, an iPad charger.
Yep, a piece of chalk and some stockings.
I think I would. Honestly, I think it's time to just jump in the water. I mean, what are you going to do with that, right? You're alone on the island, right? So the condom is a bit useless.
Yeah, it's very true.
Yeah,
it's very true.
Nowhere to plug in the charger.
Yeah, pointless task again. What about the chalk? Would you do anything with the chalk?
What would I do with the chalk on the island? Really?
Yeah,
Are these the items everyone gets?
No. Yeah, to be fair, you've got some hard items there. To be honest,
I'm not suicidal, but seriously, that's a hard, a tough combination.
Okay, so we know you're just going to swim for it. Let's say that you're just going to swim.
I might just swim for it. Yeah,
go for it.
Yeah.
So where can people find out a little bit more about you and kind of what you're up to and yeah, where can we kind of keep up to date with you?
Yeah, I suppose social media wise, I'm most active on LinkedIn, although I probably could put more stuff out there. But I would just say, hey, reach out. My email is on there, amanda.nolen@gmail.com. Just reach out, and I'm always happy to connect with anyone. So
awesome. Well, Amanda, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah.
Yes, it's been good.
Thank you for bringing your kit all the way over to Paddington.
It's what friends do, right?
Yeah.
No worries.
Yeah,
all right. Thanks
fun.
very much.
All right.
Bye.
Ciao.
Put your hands together.